Great Debaters Contest is brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.
Tuko katika eneo la Pwani tukikuletea kipindi cha mjadala, The Great Debaters Contest. I am Austin Nyombok.
And I am Mariam Bishar. To welcome you to the show, we have coastal regional giants Aga Khan Academy facing off with the Light Academy. They are debating on whether Kenya should embrace GMO technology for food security. We'll let the debaters wow us now with their incredible intellect. Proposal number 1, you have 3 minutes.
An essential proposition is on the balance, and retired schools are the last things our country can embrace in the race to secure enough bags for its citizens. Time tells the ultimate repercussions of the change phobia that pull our wings down. Joe Bryan is my name, a concerned student from Light Academy, standing firm against the propagation and willing enough to propose that Kenya should embrace GMO technology for food security. Embracing simply means accepting an idea or a proposal. GMO technology is a scientific method of modifying the characteristics of an organism by manipulating its genetic material. Food security is the state of having reliable access to a sufficient quantity of affordable, nutritious food. The ability of artificially modifying genes started at 1980, whereby in 1994 they were on commercial sale by Monsanto. However, genetically modified crops in Kenya were banned in 2012 after a test hilariously showed that genetically modified maize caused cancer in rats. Genetically modified crops enable the creation of more land for farmers to carry out agricultural activities. For instance, genetically modified crops that can survive in harsh conditions can be planted in unsuitable areas, turning them into productive agricultural lands. For example, Taru Desert can be the next food basket of our country, Kenya, only if genetically modified crops are embraced in our country. Furthermore, genetically modified crops have a higher resistance to various crop challenges, such as diseases, insects, and also high ionic content. For example, food crops can be genetically engineered to be salt tolerant. This enables them to be irrigated by salty water. It makes it easier and cheaper for farmers to irrigate these crops with salty ocean or lake water. This makes it cheaper and easier, and also increases our food production. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations estimates that the world will need to produce 70% more food by 2050. Fortunately, genetically modified foods or genetically modified crops have been proven to yield or give out high amounts of food. Therefore, this gives us the need or the necessity to embrace genetically modified crops so as to increase and improve our agricultural industry in Kenya. It therefore comes out crystal clear that the genetically modified crops have higher yields than their natural equivalents. Hopefully, I'll be the eagerly desired winds to sway the Kenyan flag to the right direction. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for your opening statements.
Kenya is food insecure. According to a recent study conducted by the United States Agency for International Development, 1.5 million people in this country are not in a situation where at all times they have access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food. Of these 1.5 million people, 352,500 of them are children suffering from acute malnutrition. According to the 2015 Global Food Security Index, Kenya ranks 83 out of 109 countries, which is appalling. This motion proposes that genetically modified organisms, which are plants that have undergone a process where scientists alter their genes to get desired traits such as resistance to disease or tolerance to pesticides, are the answer to Kenya's food woes. We disagree. Firstly, genetically modified organisms are expensive. The cost of growing 1 acre of non-GMO corn was 72,000 Kenya shillings. The cost of growing an acre of GMO corn was 81,000 Kenya shillings, according to agricultural analyst Aaron Bloom. That means that it costs 9,500 Kenya shillings more an acre to raise GMO corn, and GMO seeds can cost up to 15,000 Kenya shillings a bag more than regular seeds. GMOs need to be specifically altered crops or foods for them to work in certain climates. That means investment in research and development. We do not have the time or the financial allowance for that. Food security in Kenya is a pressing problem. Where is the money going to come from? And how long must we wait till we have a solution? Half of Kenya's agricultural output is subsistence farming. That means that half of the maize that we produce, half of the soybeans that we produce, half of the wheat that we produce goes to feeding our own population. No income, no market, no nothing. If we began to marketize the agricultural sector by providing tax cuts and subsidies to farmers, there would be an immediate and long-term increase in the farming sector output of the country. With these calculations, Kenya could produce 8 million tons of maize annually. This is enough to sustain ourselves, and we'd still have some left over to export to other countries. The problem doesn't lie with us not using genetically modified organisms. Food security can be achieved simply by utilizing our country's agricultural potential to its maximum, which is not only achievable, but extremely lucrative. It also eliminates issues such as poverty and unemployment too, because with food security comes job security. And with job security comes the growth of a manufacturing industry. And with the growth of a manufacturing industry, we have economic prosperity for Kenyans all over the world. So, can having GMOs do this? And to the level that subsistence farming will? My name is Johan Muta from the Aga Khan Academy, Mombasa, and we say GMOs are not the answer.
We'll now hear rebuttals, beginning with the proposition. You have 3 minutes.
The year is 3756, and finally, the Chalbi Desert has been eradicated by biotechnologists who use GMO technology to create plants that can survive in high drought or also grow fast. I am Haitham Haidar from Light Academy, Mombasa. I really want to propose that Kenya should embrace GMO technology for food security. But first, to my worthy opponent, I didn't get your name. Secondly, if we only grow maize 80% more, then won't that affect our nutrition as you stated? You said you wanted to increase to boost our nutrition, but that's not the way to go to monoculture. And also, how will cost affect food security? Genetically modified crops have many advantages, to mention but a few. Increased shelf life. Genetically modified crops lead to foods that have a high ability to stay in silos. A good example is the Flavor Savor tomato by Calgene, which is Monsanto biotechnology company from USA. These tomatoes can last for over a month than the normal 15 days. So this will always give us food security no matter what, even though the emergency is so big or anything. On top of that, genetically modified crops reduce different types of farm inputs. For instance, insect-resistant crops lead to less use of pesticides. Self-fertilizing crops, which are made by incorporating nitrogenous genes, can make their own nitrates from the nitrogen in the air. So it will reduce and discourage the use of fertilizers, which are costly and also affect the soil by polluting it, which will reduce our output. This will strengthen our food security. For instance, vision is impossible in total darkness. However, animals with tapetum lucidum have the ability to see hundreds of meters in pitch darkness. This enables carnivores to hunt at night. If we take the darkness as the challenges that affect our country in terms of farming, and the tapetum lucidum to be the GMO technology, then if we embrace it, we are going to see far, overcome the darkness or challenges, and we'll have total food security. I would really want to urge our Kenya to stop the ban against GMOs right now till forever, because GMO technology will lead to many advantages than the disadvantages that it has. We cannot stop using phones because they have minor disadvantages. We'll still continue to use them. So, GMO technology is the way to go for world hunger. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for your cross-examination.
Thank you very much. My name is Beverton Nyonga from the Aga Khan Academy. I am opposing this motion. First of all, I'd like to emphasize the viability of the research that was conducted on rats, particularly the main arguments against GMOs. Rats possess an about 88% gene conficiency to humans. What occurs is that the closest thing other than rats that we have to test is primates. Unfortunately, the world organizations in charge of animals' rights do not allow us to provide this type of testing to animals. Second of all, the problem here is food insecurity. GMOs are definitely not the solution. We're talking about the Chaubi Desert, a place whose water levels are quickly receding each and every year. The solution here is irrigation. I don't see how we're going to be able to plant GMOs if we don't provide water in the region in the first instant. The next thing is that Kenya is currently experiencing an exponential growth in its population. As a result, there's an increasing need of food in the region. What means we're going to do is we're going to need to spend more research and development to keep evolving the GMOs as Kenya's climate also evolves. And that means more money. My colleague told you about how much it costs. I just like to reiterate that. It costs $150 more as a bag of GMO seeds than you'd spend on regular maize seeds, for example. The next thing I'd like to talk about. My opposing delegate talked about food security as being cheap and accessible. How are we achieving food security cheap and accessible if we're spending this much money on food? Food security in Kenya is not an issue right now. The East African community currently opened its borders in 2005 as an open customs union. What this means is the East African community can change and trade goods freely without taxes and subsidies. What occurs here is that Kenya now has an increasing market to import goods and import food and sustains food security as a country. What occurs here is the GMO relation to farming. As a farmer, a subsistence farmer, you are going to have hefty problems with farming GMOs. Because A, it is costly. GMOs are for elite farmers, so to speak, for lack of a better word, industrialized farmers, people who can easily access these goods, import them at a cheaper price, putting our local farmers at a hefty disadvantage. So now we know that half of Kenya's agricultural output is subsistence farming. The issue here is to switch from that. We need to spend more of agricultural output on industrialized subsistence farming. We don't just need to grow crops to feed myself in my own homestead. I need to be growing crops with the intention of feeding my entire community. That is how we're going to achieve immediate and long-term increase in the farming sector output of the economy. With these calculations, I'd like to reiterate, 8 million tons of maize annually can be increased in production. I'd just like to point out something. GMOs increasing 24%. That's roughly maybe 10 million Kenyans at a rate of 90 kilograms a year. What is that, 10 million to 45 million? Nothing. Thank you.
Cause I'm hopeful, yes I am hopeful for Safaricom. It's intenser, it's faster than any other brand. And be hopeful, hopeful, and it'll make a way. I know it ain't easy, but that's okay, just be hopeful.
Take part in the M Challenge by sending your short song, rap or poem about Safaricom M-Pesa on WhatsApp, and you could win 1,000 shillings in Safaricom airtime.
The proposition have been asked, even as they endorse GMOs, what do we do about their side effects, and especially the health side effects? And the opposition have been challenged to give practical solutions to the problem of food security if they are in opposition to the use of genetically modified foods. We'll have them respond now. Proposal number 3, you have 3 minutes.
The great wizards of Madziporato Firamiro did not go astray when they said, if you like the sweet fruits in your brother's farm, or your sister's farm, go plant your own. My name is Athman Shami from Light Academy, Mombasa, ready to propose the motion which reads, Kenya should embrace GMO technology for food shortages. Monica from Coast Academy asked this question. What are we going to do about the side effects of the GMO technology? GMOs are still a relatively premature technology, and in the development process, only the time will reveal the ultimate effects on human. This means that the studies that have been done are not clear enough to prove that the GMO technology is harmful to the community. My worthy opponent asked me to define the chip in the process of GMO technology. Chip means that during the process we can use the water from the lakes and the ocean, which are salty. In real sense, it's not suitable. But after modifying the crops with the GMO, we are likely to use this water and thus making the resources cheap. Genetically modified crops have higher nutritional values. These crops have been clearly known to have a higher nutritional value than the normal ones. These crops can also be modified to contain a certain specific nutrient, be it a mineral or a vitamin. A good example is the golden rice, which has been brewed by the Food and Agriculture Organization to have a high concentration of vitamin A. This rice can be used in areas which have been affected with vitamin A deficiency to eradicate the problem. They can also be modified with a certain gene, such as the mangrove, Avicennia marina, or the Rhizophora mucronata, so that it can be able to absorb minerals and vitamins, adding the food nutrition. To borrow a quote from Robert Pokuse, who is the vice chairman of the health committee in Kenya, they wanted to put a maize plant with a cactus gene so that it can withstand resistance. And he said, we will not have made the maize plant a cactus, but we only borrowed a gene that will make it resistant to the sun. And in this sense, we will make the crops having a gene that will be able to absorb mineral and vitamins so that it can be more nutritious. Moreover, GMO technology have been absorbed and succeeded in various countries, from USA, Brazil, Argentina, and even to our sister countries in Africa. South Africa has a high population and is succeeding with biotechnology. Egypt and Burkina Faso turned to it in 2008 and removed the flaws in irrigation schemes. So, why shouldn't we take this GMO technology, for they have succeeded and we are likely also to succeed. GMOs may not be natural, but not everything natural is good for us, and not everything unnatural is bad for us. Let's take good examples. Sodium apples, mushrooms, toadstools are natural but not good for us. So why not give the GMOs a fair chance? For every rock has a statue in it, and it's the work of the sculptor to find the statue. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to respond to the audience.
Let me begin by addressing the point that was asked in a question to me. Now, personally, our team does not believe that the solutions we're proposing are not practical. They make perfect sense in the case of Kenya. When we have half of our entire population that is based on agriculture, simply producing food for themselves and not providing it to the rest of the community, why can we not just assist this? In fact, I think GMOs are not practical. Why do you have to wait years and years for research and development just to produce food that is suitable to Kenya? Why do you have to wait for that much? Why do you have to invest that much in this economy when instead all you could be doing is simply just increasing the output of maize or wheat or any other food that Kenya requires? It is practical, it is quick, and it is logical. When we're talking about nutrition, ladies and gentlemen, let me be clear on the fact that nutrition is not the solution to food security. At this moment, you have 30% of Kenyans who are undernourished, and the problem is not that they do not have nutritious food, the problem is that they do not have food that suffices. Simply increasing the GMO amount does not do anything. A study in the Philippines found out that only 16% yield increases occurred when we increased the GMO amount of maize produced. 16% in Kenyan numbers is nothing. That will be insufficient to feed about 200,000 Kenyans. Each Kenyan consumes 90 kilograms of maize a year. It's impractical. And when we're talking about maize and this idea of drought resistance, etc., ladies and gentlemen, these already exist. We don't need to genetically modify them. There are hundreds of varieties of maize that are weather resistant. I know this personally because my father is a farmer and we have experience with this. Lastly, when we're talking about irrigation, Irrigation is a more viable, suitable alternative in comparison to GMOs. And the reason for that is simple. The Kenyan government plans to go to the Galana Delta and increase the crop yields up to 1 million tons of maize per year. That is literally 1/8 of the production that the Kenyan government already has. Ladies and gentlemen, increasing this will be quick, it'll be effective, and it'll be the only solution that we need to solve food insecurity now. Our population is increasing, food insecurity is increasing, and waiting for research and development, extreme expenses, and simple hope that the GMOs will work in Kenya is simply not practical. Thank you.
We'll now hear closing statements. Proposers, you have 1 minute.
Athman Shami from Light Academy, Mombasa is back again. A neighbor had dogs and cats. The dogs, which gave them security, gave rise to puppies. We borrowed the puppies and also gave us security. Why shouldn't we borrow the cats so that we may eradicate the mice in our homes? So, the neighbors are the developed countries. Puppies we borrowed are the former technology. The cats are the GMO technology. So, if we took the dogs and the puppies and they succeeded in our nation, why shouldn't we just follow suit? Since time immemorial, our food productivity have been improving day to day. Thanks to technology. Therefore, let us adopt the GMO technology so that we may boost food production, sharing adequate food to store, thus providing food security for generations to come. And as I said earlier, every stone has a statue in it, and it's the work of a sculptor to find the statue. Thank you.
Opposition, you also have 1 minute.
Let me tell you why we shouldn't borrow dogs and cats. Based on my Tom and Jerry experience as a child, dogs and cats generally don't mix. Therefore, the same way in nature, apples and oranges just don't mix. Now, we as Kenyans are allowed to be distrustive of foreign studies. One, look at the kind of climate that they're conducted in. North America, Europe, Northern Asia. None of these have climates which replicate what we find in Kenya. Then again, these GMO studies are conducted by private institutions in countries which are already pro-GMO. Take the United States of America, for example. The Food and Drug Administration of that country does not even require for the food that is GMO to be labeled. What kind of nonsense is that? Now, at the moment, we do not have the capacity to feed to every single Kenyan. We do not have the capacity to create genetically modified organisms that will be able to sustain our people. So why don't we use the money that we have now to invest and feed that starving Kenyan? Thank you.
The Aga Khan Academy, Muta, good use of figures to persuade your audience, especially at the beginning of a debate. There is a way in which numbers work with us. Once you come up with your figures and you give us at the beginning of your debate, it convinces us. One of the things that people always bring in a debate, we call them stock issues, is the issue of cost. You know, are we going to embrace this technology or are we going to fail to embrace it using the argument of cost? And the fact that it came from you was quite commendable. And I love the conclusion. The problem is not with us, but to use what we have. That is exactly where the problem lied. And I think it was commendable presentation. Anyong, again, you capitalized a lot on raising counter issues, that we have issues that we should address instead of just rushing into this particular technology, the issue of water and many others. And I think that was commendable. I said at one point, I love your mathematics. You know, at one point, there were a lot of numbers and a lot of figures coming forth relevant to the motion, which was commendable. And finally, Vias, again, a very good debater. And you said not necessarily GMO, and a couple of arguments actually that were raised. And a personal example of your father, what I loved is the fact that you're able to identify with emotion and even bring it home. Quite commendable. Very commendable, Aga Khan. Very commendable, Light Academy. Keep it up.
Light Academy, you put up a spirited fight in proposing this motion. Very good introduction. I think when Joe begins us off, it's almost like a class. And, you know, woe unto you if you haven't done a lot of reading on this aspect. And so that was really commendable on your part. And then, of course, Heitman comes in and talks about the advantages of GMOs. And at some point, I'm almost convinced that maybe that is the way to go. And so very convincing arguments, very good use of analogy. And Shami comes in again with very good response to questions and evidence of research.
Kenya should embrace GMO technology for food security. I think this is a very fresh topic, even now that we know that the Deputy President said that we shall be having the GMOs introduced in the country. And there's been a lot of debate, people asking questions of, are they safe for us? Are they not safe? And we have had nations, and I love the examples that came across, whether we should label GMO products or not, and countries that are not even doing that. And I love the examples and the analogies given. Food security, are we at a bad position? I think that was what I really wanted brought out, especially from Light Academy. Show us how bad we are doing, so that now we can only see the alternative being embracing GMOs. And I think also Aga Khan Academy came across telling us, we don't have to go the GMO way. There are better ways of doing these things, with the examples of exports and the rest that you gave us. That was excellently done. So in terms of angles taken by both teams, I commend what you guys did.
Light Academy Mombasa, the judges awarded you 75%. Please give them a round of applause. The Aga Khan Academy Mombasa, the judges awarded you 80%. You are our winners for the debate.
Congratulations, Aga Khan Academy, and Light Academy, congratulations as well for putting up a good fight. We'd like to thank the two teams on stage for giving us such a spirited debate, and of course, you, the audience, for watching. Remember to follow us on all our social media platforms, on Twitter at Great Debaters EA, and on Facebook, Great Debaters East Africa. I have been your host, Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Nyambok. Catch you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest was brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.